Son of a bitch.
Groovy.
Hey everybody, this is Matthew Movies coming at you with my review of The Frighteners, the 1996 Peter Jackson film that I think is absolutely fantastic and interestingly enough does actually kind of hint at some things that would come later in his career, but I'll touch on that a little bit more down the road here. And this movie is starring Michael J. Fox, an actor who I absolutely adore. I love this guy's movies, and this is one right up there for me among his absolute best, which I include in the ilk of the Back to the Future trilogy and Teen Wolf and Family Ties, of course, which isn't a movie, it's a show, but it's also some of his best work in my view. I absolutely love him in this movie, and it's very, very interesting to see the way his character plays out in this movie, because it was very, very different than the type of person that he typically plays. For those of you who don't know what this movie is about, basically, like I said, it stars Michael J. Fox, not Michael Jackson, but it stars Michael J. Fox, and he plays this kind of paranormal investigator who goes around and find out that he's taking advantage of people. Basically, he goes in and you find out that he does actually have paranormal abilities. He's able to see ghosts or the departed who've stuck around instead of going to heaven or hell, and he has a group of them that he has at his side. He goes into somebody's house and he convinces them to use his services by having his ghost friends go in and basically haunt them, and then he goes in, he uses these machines and the chemicals and stuff like that to basically say that he's rid the house of these ghosts that he actually brought with him, and he grifts people for money, and that's how he exists. And right off the hop, it's a very different type of character for him because he is kind of a jerk. Well, maybe not even kind of, he is a jerk. He's taking advantage of people. He's not a good guy at the beginning of the film by any stretch of the imagination. He's not, he's not evil or whatever, but he's a shyster. He's kind of mean to some people. He has a bad attitude. It's a very, very different kind of role from Michael J. Fox, who usually plays much more lovable guys who are much more like the traditional protagonist. And so it was very, very interesting to see him play a much more nuanced character, a complicated, an anti-hero, and I thought he knocked it out of the park in this movie. I thought he's very, very entertaining. You come to care about his character, especially as the film progresses, as he takes on this presence that is much more fearsome than people around him are willing to accept at first. I think he does a great job in this movie, and the whole movie, basically the plot of the movie kind of starts off when he comes across this woman who he decides he's going to take advantage of as well, who's played by an actress by the name of Trini Alvarado. Alvarado, I believe. And he does his stick with her. He goes in, he's taking advantage of her, trying to get money out of her by saving her, just like he does with everybody else. But when he's there, he takes a look at her husband, who's this guy who's very angry. He's kind of a jerk, and he sizes up Michael J. Fox's character pretty early on and decides that he's a shyster. But when he's dealing with him, he sees like a number carved into his forehead, and he's like, what's that about? And then as it progresses, he sees basically him be attacked and killed by this being that looks like the Grim Reaper, and so he's really taken aback by it. He doesn't know how to handle it, and then throughout the rest of the film, he figures out that it's actually a ghostly serial killer that's going around and taking people's lives after the fact. And every time he decides he could take somebody's life, he carves the number into their forehead that basically signifies that this is my 17th kill or 12th kill or what have you, right? And so he ends up taking her on, and I absolutely adore the story of this movie. I think it's very, very interesting. I like the fact that, again, it has a lot of characters in it that are kind of very mixed bags that you don't necessarily take as being good or bad. And then there are a couple of, like, there's Trini, I would say, is her character is the shining beacon of hope in this film, whereas you have the killers in this film, which are the evil. But then you have a lot of nuanced characters in between, and I think that's great. And also, one of the major strengths of this movie is that you come to care about so many of the characters, including the three ghosts that Michael J. Fox works with all the time. I mean, there's two of them. There's a guy who's kind of very nebbish, kind of nerd guy, and there's one played by Chi McBride, who you find out is supposed to have been a gangster in his when he was still alive, and they're there along with him, helping him in his scheme and there's also the judge who, unsurprisingly, is a judge, and he's a very much older man, and even though they're very archetypes. I mean, they're they're stereotypes of what those type of people would be. You come to care about them, and as the film progresses, and some of them don't exactly have the best time, and you really have an emotional reaction to it. And then when you find out who the Grim Reaper character, the guy who going around killing is, when he's played by Jake Busey of all people, an actor who, generally speaking, I'm not able to take all that seriously, but he does a fantastic job of being evil in this movie, and just being a very sadistic killer. And you find out this is a kind of minor spoiler, so if you don't want to hear it, maybe skip forward a little bit, but you find out that he has an accomplice who's still alive, who was there back when he was alive killing, and at the time fainted off like she was one of his victims that had managed to escape. But you find out throughout the film that she was actually there to assist him, and she's played by Dee Wallace Stone, who was Dee Wallace back in the day, who of all people, who always associate with E.T. being this very kindly, motherly kind of character. To sort of see her play this evil being is fantastic, and she does a great job. She really seems to relish the role and gets into it. And the two of them, when they're sharing scenes together, it's the ghostly version of Jake Busey, and her real version. But the two of them, there's just the physical chemistry between the two of them, and the intimacy that you can see playing out, I think, is very, very cool, and I absolutely adore that part of the film. And then you have Jeffrey Combs pops up in this movie, an actor who I always associate with the Reanimator series, and he's this paranormal investigator himself, who actually he's working more in tune with the police. But as the film progresses, you find out that he's a lot more complicated. He has very weird demeanor. He acts like he's got these like tics, and he acts like he's just not all there mentally. But as the film progresses, you find out that the reason why he acts that way is he's spent his life doing everything he can to understand the paranormal side. And he takes off his shirt at one point, and he has like a pentagram on his chest, and you see there's like a Nazi symbol on his hand, and all the symbolism all over his body, because he's trying to become in tune with the dark side, and finding out all that stuff. But it's much more of a curiosity for him. He's not necessarily evil per se, but he's evil. He's willing to do dastardly things to get to understand that this world and the nature of it. And I think his character is very, very interesting. It's a very unique character. So Jeffrey Combs is perfectly cast to play it, because you have to have somebody who's very, very eccentric, and I think he does a great job in that regard. And Arlie Ermey shows up as a ghost, and I think his character is very, very cool. Basically, he's a drill sergeant, the same style of character that he plays in pretty much every movie he pops up in. But he's been put to rest in a graveyard, and all the other ghosts that are still remaining in that graveyard, he's there to kind of protect them and keep them in order. And he can't stand Michael J. Fox's character, because he has the ghosts that are working with him that he feels like should be kind of more in line, and they shouldn't be messing with the living, and so he hates him. And I think his character is very interesting. And again, I mean, if you're gonna have a drill sergeant style character, you can't really do better than Arlie Ermey to play him. And when I was talking earlier about how this kind of hints at where some of the things that Peter Jackson would do later on in his career, basically what I was referring to is the look of the ghost in this movie. Because if you've seen Return of the King, the third Lord of the Rings film that he made, there's the ghost of the Army of the Dead, I should say, and when the look of them is almost exactly the same as the Frightener ghost. So I thought that was kind of cool. And when I saw Return of the Dead for the first time, I'm like, that's kind of interesting. So overall, I really, really enjoy this movie a lot. It's got a very cool and interesting story, and it tackles life and death in an interesting way. And I think it's definitely worth checking out, especially because there are some really noteworthy performances in it. And so it's a very different style of role for Michael J. Fox. So all of that, I think, makes it very, very worthwhile. So let me know in the comment section below what you think. If you've seen it, if you like it, if you hated it, if you didn't like the style of it, if you thought it was too over the top, whatever. Other than that, hit that like button, hit that share button. It makes it much more likely that other people discover this video exists. Come and check it out and let me know what they think, which would be awesome, because I love talking to people about movies. And speaking of which, if you are one of those people who are new here or you just haven't done it yet, please hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. That way you can find out when I put out a new video and come and check it out and give me that feedback and have that back and forth. I absolutely adore talking to people about movies, and you should be one of them. Aside from all that though, have yourself a good day.